If the Olympics didn't have enough male-on-female violence for you, a shocking video went viral this week showing a Nandos waitress being hit in the face with a plate by a Muslim man in front of his wife and child. Take a look at this. Apparently this happened back in March. You'd think the police would be right on it. After all, they can arrest and sentence someone in 24 hours for shouting at a police dog or sharing a meme on Facebook. But the victim, the Nandos waitress, posted a video revealing that the police were in the restaurant at the time and interviewed the man and did nothing. Still, it's got to be the first time a girl's been abused by a Muslim man and the police looked the other way.
I want to say what's more concerning than the man's behaviour was the failure of the Metropolitan Police and their conduct. I was grossly let down by them. They've reopened the investigation now, thanks to all of the support and the attention it's been receiving online, and for that I'm grateful. However, I was really disappointed and let down with what happened at the time with the police, which I'll get into. So the man's come in with the wife, I assume, and the baby, and they were sat down by a new colleague. The new colleague didn't give them a high chair. Usually you're supposed to ask, but I think they assumed that they were just going to be given one anyway. That's when they got my attention because they were sat right behind me. My back was faced towards them. They got my attention. It was the lady initially, and she already seemed irritated. They asked me for the high chair. I started bringing it. Midway through me bringing it, I realised we're not allowed to put it in that area because that's where we run the food. We run the food back and forth in that area, and that was my station for that day. So midway through me bringing it, I realised we're not allowed to put it there. I told them I'll double check with the supervisor, which I did. The supervisor said we're not allowed. So I relayed that information back to the couple. At this point, the man got quite aggressive with me. He started swearing at me, saying I'm wasting his effing time to sit him somewhere the F else then. At that point, I said I'd be happy to sit them in another section, but to just give me a second. At that point, he said, you're a little effing girl. Why the F do you work here? Sit me somewhere the F else. So it's then I said, let me get my manager involved because I didn't want to deal with that. So my manager's come now. The guy's still shouting, being aggressive, arguing. The manager has just sat him somewhere else with a baby chair. I asked why we're still serving him to the manager. I was ignored, and that was that. Some time passes and we notice that the table is clear now. No one's sitting there. We all just assumed they left the restaurant. The manager's asked me where they've gone. I said, I don't know. We've all assumed they've left. I'm continuing to do my job and I get a thing on my screen to go to a specific table. It was a table in the corner of the restaurant to run their food. So as I'm going and on my way to give the food to this table, I noticed that there's 2 police officers already in the restaurant waiting for their food. So I've gone to this table now, and as I'm approaching this table, I noticed that it's the couple with the baby. As I'm putting the food down, I asked them, because they have moved basically without telling anyone, without informing anyone. Usually you're supposed to tell someone at Nando's. I placed the food down and I asked, are you not using the high chair then? Because they've moved by themselves without taking the high chair. It's at that point the man has picked up the plate and whacked me on the side of my head with it, and there was cutlery on the plate too. I didn't register what just happened. I remembered that the police were in the restaurant, so as you can see in the video, that's when I said I'm going to the police. I walk off and I go to one of the officers. There were 2 officers present, a male and a female officer. I first go to the female officer and I said, this man's hit me on the head with a plate. Sorry, before that, I'd just like to also add that at this point, the wife is now chasing behind me, calling me a fat B word and repeating that as she's chasing me. The officer now, this man's just hit me on the head. She didn't seem bothered. She said, go speak to my colleague, which was the male officer sitting down waiting for his food. I go to him and I say, this man's assaulted me, he's hit me on the head with a plate. He said, who, this fella over here? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, and he takes the guy outside, and my manager takes me to the back office. Whilst I'm in the office, I can see from the CCTV screens that the police let the guy go. So the male officer who took him outside basically let him wander off without taking any of his details, without taking any statements, without checking the CCTV. And I could see on another screen that the female officer was having a laugh with the wife and playing with the baby. At this point, my managers have seen the CCTV. They agree that this man needs to be arrested, and they ask for the police to come in to view the CCTV. The police have now viewed the CCTV. They realised they made a mistake, but the male officer asked me what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to press charges. The officers are now telling me that I'm not allowed to press charges, or that I can't press charges because I'd have to go in front of a jury of 12 to convince them that I was unprovokedly attacked. And apparently the man has told the police officer that I threatened to punch him in the face. As you can see in the video, he's about a 6 foot something man, quite built. I'm just about 5 foot. It doesn't make sense. I point out to the officers that in the CCTV footage you can see that at no point there was not enough time for me to have even threatened the man before I got assaulted, to which the officer replied, well, there's no audio attached to the CCTV, so you can't prove that. We go around in circles for about an hour, or what felt like 5 hours basically, of them telling me what do I want to do. I said I want to press charges. They said I can't and gave me reasons as to why I couldn't, invalid reasons I had. I filed a complaint against the officers a couple of days later. Their supervisor got back to me and basically said they're humans and they made a mistake at work the same way you can make a mistake at work. And the male officer called me back also and basically told me, well, I couldn't hear or understand what you were saying, and that you didn't tell me that he hit you on the head. Their supervisor also told me that these officers are very experienced and that due to the commotion and the busyness of the environment that maybe they didn't understand me. They also told me nothing could be done about the situation and that the case has to be closed. Since all of the attention it's gotten online, the police have now issued an apology to me and they've opened up an investigation again. The man still hasn't been found as of yet, but they're looking for him. I'd just like to say it was just a part-time job for me. I'm a uni student and this was just supposed to be me being able to be financially independent. And it's just a shame that safety in a workplace, especially for young women, isn't something that's promised, and that police being present also doesn't promise you safety. I again want to thank everyone for all the kind messages I've been receiving. The support has been overwhelming and it means a lot to me, and I appreciate everything, and I'm glad the case has been reopened again.
What an amazing girl, by the way, working hard to pay her way through university and now standing up for her right not to be smashed in the face by a grown man. Also, the man's wife called her a fat bitch. Man, I know that CCTV footage is pretty grainy, but if I was to guess who's got the higher BMI, it would be the person ordering the fries in Nandos. According to the victim, police were present but joked with the man, then said they couldn't press charges because the man claimed that the waitress threatened him first. When the girl filed a complaint against these officers, their supervisor got back to her and essentially said they're humans and made a mistake. Is this just police incompetence, or is there something else going on? Some people have said that it's irrelevant that the man is Muslim. I mean, I'm assuming the man is Muslim as his wife is wearing a hijab. Although looking at this picture of the guy at the cash register, he might have attacked the woman because he thought she was married to Popeye. I was criticised on Twitter for mentioning his cultural background, but I only mentioned it because Islam is the religion of peace and Islamic societies around the world are famously feminist, so it's very unusual. But it's relevant because of how different demographic groups are treated under Britain's intersectional framework. Britain's politicians openly state that this man is from a protected class.
In relation to the Muslim community, look, let me be very clear. I will take every step that's necessary to keep you safe.
I just need you to understand we're not against you guys. We're here to help and protect you.
We all understand. Yeah.
This Islamophobia Awareness Month comes at a deeply troubling time for Muslim communities across Britain. We've seen a devastating rise in Islamophobia. As leader of the Labour Party, I am indebted to the contributions of Muslim members, activists and politicians who make our party what it is today. I'd like to thank Muslim organisations and mosques who work tirelessly to raise awareness and shine a light on the scale of Islamophobia.
It would be interesting to know if these police officers are also from one of Britain's protected classes, or if their soft touch is just because they're afraid of being called racist. It's also relevant because it could reflect cultural differences. I've only seen men hitting women a few times in my life, and most of them have been in Muslim countries, and I don't spend a huge amount of time in Muslim countries. In Morocco, I saw a man beating a woman, I assume it was his wife, in the street. I was going to step in and help, but he looked like he could handle it himself. In Egypt, a local bloke harassed a girl I was with while I was inside a shop getting beers. Unfortunately for him, she's Russian, and much more capable of physical violence than he was, so by the time I came out of the shop, she'd literally kicked him up the arse without even dropping her cigarette. When we talk talk about two-tier policing, can you imagine if this was a man in a Union Jack t-shirt whacking an ethnic minority girl in the face like this? It would instantly be condemned as proof of systemic racism, Islamophobia, misogyny and white British men, and he'd be carted off to jail. Just look at how anyone anywhere near a riot is treated by the police. They're arrested and then given lengthy sentences for things like shouting or sharing social media posts. Obviously, physical violence is deplorable, as is inciting violence, but some of these headlines are verging on the ridiculous. Rioter who shouted in a police dog's face jailed for 20 months. Blimey, you can get jail time for telling a police dog to get off the couch. Man, 81 charged after city centre protest. A big element of the protest was essentially Brits asking the government, can you do something to stop little kids being killed? And the government replied, well, the best I can do is lock up your granddad. Teenager who waved England flag near North Yorkshire Islamic Centre jailed. It seems like the only flag you're not allowed to wave in England is the England flag. Loyalist D. Stitt arrested on return from Spanish family holiday over stop spread of evil Islam post. I've seen the same sentiment as this expressed by feminist protesters in Iran who are persecuted by the Islamic theocracy for not wearing a veil, and they've been punished in a similar way for saying it. Some people claim that the girl hit in the face appears to be Muslim, as if that makes it okay somehow, but Muslim women are frequently victimised. Just this week we saw the trial of Mohammed Hassan from Bradford, who assaulted and punched 3 women for not wearing traditional Asian dress. Hassan pulled up alongside them at a service station and was said by one of the women to be refueling his car slowly on purpose. All 3 decided to wait until he'd left, as he had previously objected to their non-traditional dress and makeup, verbally abusing them as slags and prostitutes, and demanding that they dress conservatively. Well, on this occasion, he slammed one woman's head on the dashboard of her vehicle. He grabbed another one's hair and punched her in the head before hitting the 3rd woman. This all happened in broad daylight on CCTV, but he wasn't jailed. He received a suspended sentence. If only he'd waved an England flag while he did it. Britain's Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, who oversees the police, has pledged to treat extreme misogyny the same as terrorism, although she'd no doubt be afraid of using that term around this man for fear of being called Islamophobic. Labour don't have the best track record when it comes to tackling misogyny in all communities. Senior Labour Party figures attended a Birmingham meeting where Muslim men and women were seated separately. Certain communities get special leeway. And if she's treating misogyny the same as terrorism, does that mean that after an incident of misogyny, she'll tell us, don't look back in anger. Misogyny is the attitude of peace, and not all men are misogynist. If I was a woman, I'd prefer it if Labour treated misogyny the same way they treat patriotism, because then people will actually go to jail. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, and you can buy me half a pint of beer on the link below. And if you want to support me making these videos and get exclusive content and be part of a nice community of the only sane people left in the West, then sign up to my Patreon. There's a link below.